Hello everyone! Today we will be deciphering and explaining about the very first chapter in this subject. However, before we get into the main focus of this video, we'd like to introduce our team. Here is Aditya Adnan. The next one is Ciara Najla Atanina Roni. This is me, Siti Ivanka Nurfadia, but you guys can call me Ivanka. And the last one is Utami Dian Putri, or Tami. Have you guys ever wondered about the differences between the public sector and private sector? If you have, it is the best time for you to understand it thoroughly, as in this video we will be covering these terms one by one. Okay, the first one is public sector. What does it really mean by public sector? According to several resources that we've gotten so far, public sector can simply be defined as the part of an economy that is controlled by the government. It is composed of both public services and public enterprises, which in this case, all of the entities and organizations are owned, run, and operated by the government. And also, it exists to provide services for its citizens by the government. Similar to the voluntary sector, organizations in the public sector do not seek to generate or create any kind of profit. However, one thing to note that this doesn't include any private companies, voluntary organizations, as well as households. The examples of public sector can be seen in the form of healthcare, education, military forces, and also public facilities such as buses, trains, banks, and any other public facilities. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one, the private sector. The private sector is the part of the economy that is run, operated, owned, or controlled by private individuals or companies for profit. In other words, the private sector is a segment of a national economy that is not operated by the state or the government, and their businesses are totally driven by profit. The profit earned by private sector organizations may be beneficial for their owners, shareholders, as well as for their investors. A private sector organization is created by forming a new enterprise or privatizing a public sector organization. Normally speaking, the private sector has a main goal of making money as much as they can, and in order to help the private sectors achieving their main goal, they need to recruit more people. In this case, this obviously does make any sense, as the private sector organizations tend to employ more workers than the public sectors do. In most free economies, the private sector makes up a big portion of the economy, as opposed to nations that have more state control over their economies, which have a larger public sector. For instance, the United States has a strong private sector as it has a free economy and is exemplified through their companies and brands. As you can see from your screen now, here are some of the examples of the private sector. Talking about economics and accounting, there's a term called public sector accounting. So, what does that mean? In terms of accounting, public sector accounting is known as an accounting method applied to non-profit entities in the public sector, which encompass central and local government, as well as quasi-governmental bodies or special corporations. It is concerned with accounting for government financial business by means of reporting its financial performance. In this case, the size of profits does not represent an effective measurement for evaluating performance. Okay, so the next one is the purpose of public sector accounting. The first one is demonstrating the propriety of transactions and their conformity with the law. The second one is measuring current performance, providing useful information for the efficient control and effective management. Next one will be facilitating audit exercises to be carried out, planning future operations, and the last one will be appraising those in the authority in efficiency and effectiveness. However, apart from those that I've been mentioning before, the main purposes of public sector accounting is ascertaining the legitimacy of transactions and their compliance with established norms, regulations, and statutes. Public sector disbursements should accord with the provisions, appropriate acts, as well as financial regulations. As I have mentioned earlier, public sector accounting is defined as an accounting method applied to non-profit entities in the public sector, which encompass central and local government, as well as quasi-governmental bodies or special corporations, and is concerned with accounting for government financial business by means of reporting its financial performance. The word non-profit strictly indicates that its main goal is more towards the public and social welfare. All of these statements are exemplified through the presence of hospitals, colleges and universities, government agencies, volunteer organizations, religious organizations, foundations, and so on. And one thing to note for sure that all of these mentioned before are all included to the scope of local government, central government, as well as government work units. Okay, so now let's begin the discussions about the private sector accounting. Well, I think you guys may notice and realize that we have been covering some of the definitions regarding the private sector in general. In this section, we are going to discuss some of the things related to the private sector according to the economics and accounting's perspective. So, what does the private sector accounting mean? Private sector accounting is an accounting concerned with the inner workings of businesses, governments, and agencies. Unlike the public sector accounting, this sector is mostly managed by individuals or private companies or organizations. In most cases, private organization is also engaged in the service of goods whose ownership is distinguished from their ability to pay for these goods or services which have already been determined by the law. Therefore, the people joined in these organizations or program can be perceived as more profit-oriented people. Private accountants work for specific companies and are an important part to the success of any organization. For this reason, many public accountants eventually work in the private sector. In order to get a better understanding about the public sector accounting and the private sector accounting, here's the table showing about the differences between these two terms. In this video, I will explain it to you one by one so that you can have a better understanding about the term. Okay, first, let's start with the public sector accounting. In a public sector accounting, the work being performed is done to satisfy regulatory requirements for transparency. Public accountants provide services to a wide range of clients, which include large corporations, small businesses, non-profit organizations, as well as government agencies. Public accountants have a range of clients and are either self-employed or employees of public accounting firms. And accountants and accounting firms that operate based on a similar business model are referred to as engaging in public accounting. Okay, so now moving on to the next one, which is private sector accounting. In this sector, the work is being performed strictly for the benefit of the company. Private accountants do not have a client and they are employed by corporations and provide accounting services for their employers exclusively. Private accountants may be employed as controllers or in-house accountants and provide services only to their employer. And the last one, attorneys and law firms that provide services to a wide range of external clients are generally referred to as being in private practice. So, If you still don't get a point about the differences between those two terms, don't worry or don't feel bad. Here, we will provide you with another table which hopefully explain more detail and more concise about the explanation between those two terms. Okay, so the next one is about the concept of good governance in the public sector. However, before we jump straight into the main focus of the topic, first thing that we are gonna do is I want you to be familiar with some of the definitions which may be found throughout the discussion. Well, in reality, there is no specific definition for the term public sector governance. Responding to such situation, what is understood by the term appears to vary considerably among jurisdictions. For the purpose of this framework, the following definition of governance in the public sector has been adopted, as you can see from the screen. So what is good governance? Generally, good governance is defined as a way of measuring how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources in a private way. Governance itself is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. Governance in this context can apply to corporate, international, national, or local governance as well as the interactions between other sectors of the society. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one, which is the characteristics of good governance. Basically, good governance has around 8 major characteristics. These include participatory, consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective innovation, equitable, and also inclusive and follows the rule of the law. Yeah, so here's the guidance on implementing the good governance in the public sector. As you can see from your screen right now, there are about 5 useful tips that can be done in order to implement the good governance in the public sector. So the first one is openness and comprehensive engagement towards stakeholder. The second one would be strong commitment to ethical values, the rule of law, as well as integrity. The next one is developing the capacity of entity, managing risk through robust internal control, and also implementing good practices. So now we've come to the last part of this video. This section contains 3 different branches of accounting, and the discussions about those branches are limited to a certain extent, which in this case is public sector accounting. The first one will be management accounting. Management accounting can simply be defined as the process of preparing reports about business operations that help managers make short-term and long-term decisions. Apart from making decisions, management accounting can also be used in planning and evaluating their performances regarding their business. Accordingly, it helps a business pursue its goals by identifying, measuring, analyzing, interpreting, as well as communicating information to managers. So, what we are going to do right now is to discuss about the roles of public sector management accounting. We've gathered all of the information from many sources including internets, books, and so on, and we come across with these things. These are just some of the examples that we've covered so far. Another intriguing part that we are going to discuss with you guys in this video is about financial accounting. According to many sources, it can be concluded that the financial accounting is a specific branch of accounting involving a process of recording, summarizing, and reporting the myriad of transactions resulting from business operations over a period of time. These transactions are then summarized in the preparation of financial statements, including the balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement that record the company's operating performance over a specified period. Financial accounting is a specialized branch of accounting that keeps track of a company's financial transactions. They are using a standardized guidelines. So these are the roles of public sector financial accounting. Finally, we've come to the very last part of this video, which is auditing. Auditing is a part of the accounting world. It is the term used to describe an examination of accounting and financial records that is undertaken independently. This is done to determine if the company or the business undertaking has confirmed its operations to the laws and the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. And as you guys can see from the screen, these are the roles of public sector auditing. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Bye bye. Have a great day.